President-elect Donald Trump calls terror attacks in Ankara and Berlin an attack on humanity. Europe braces for Russian cyber assault ahead of 2017 elections. And new research suggests that pregnancy changes women's brain structure to prepare them for motherhood. Africa 54 starts right now.
Good evening and welcome. I'm Vincent Makori. This is Africa 54. An intense manhunt is ongoing across Europe Thursday for the chief suspect in Monday's Berlin market attack that killed 12 people and injured dozens more. German authorities have identified the man as Anis Amri, a 24-year-old Tunisian man who was supposed to have been deported from Germany months ago. Officials say Amri had come to Germany in July 2015 and for 6 months this year was under surveillance following a tip he might try to buy weapons for a possible attack. That probe ended in September, and counterterrorism agencies last exchanged information about him in November. His asylum application was denied 6 months ago, but he was not sent back to Tunisia because of problems with his documents. Those revelations have renewed questions in Germany about how the country vets the thousands of people who have entered the country looking for asylum. Well, German Chancellor Angela Merkel said a day after the truck attack, it would be hard to bear if an asylum seeker was responsible for that carnage. Now, the Islamic State terrorist group has claimed responsibility for the attack. Prosecutors are offering a reward of over $100,000 for information leading to Amir's capture. U.S. President-elect Donald Trump was asked to comment Wednesday on the tragedy, and he said what is happening is terrible. VOA's Zlatitsa Hoke tells us more.
Donald Trump told reporters at his Mar-a-Lago estate in Florida that the deadly truck attack in Berlin and the assassination of the Russian ambassador in Turkey prove he was 100% right.
It's not an attack on humanity. That's what it is. It's an attack on humanity. And it's got to be stopped.
During his election campaign, Trump insisted that the U.S. should halt the immigration of all Muslims until there is a tough screening system in place. In Berlin Wednesday, right-wing protesters held a rally blaming the attack on the government's immigration policy. But a larger group of Germans joined with refugees at the crash site in a show of unity and defiance in the face of terrorism. They sang "We Are the World" and carried signs saying "Berlin stands together and you will not divide us." German authorities have identified 24-year-old Tunisian Anis Amri as a prime suspect in the Berlin attack. His asylum application was rejected in July. The federal prosecutor's office said it was offering a reward of up to $104,000 for information leading to his capture.
The federal prosecutor declared that the Tunisian is a serious lead. His wallet was found in the cabin of the truck.
It is believed that the suspect killed the Polish driver of the truck and then drove the vehicle into the crowded market. Germany has issued a search warrant for the suspect that is valid across Europe. Officials emphasize that the suspect is not necessarily the assailant.
Obviously, this is about an individual classified as dangerous, already known to the security services that he belonged to the Islamist Salafist scene.
Holiday gatherings have been a frequent target for Islamist militants in recent years. Zlatitsa Hoke, VOA News, Washington.
Well, in the Middle East, the International Committee of the Red Cross says it expects evacuations for thousands of Syrians still waiting to leave Aleppo and a pair of villages under rebel siege in Idlib province to go into the night Thursday. But caution, bad weather is slowing the process. The ICRC is helping with the evacuations and says that some 34,000 people have left eastern Aleppo. That figure also includes 4,000 rebel fighters who left overnight. Once the week-long evacuation effort is complete, President Bashar al-Assad's government will have full control of Aleppo, the country's most populous city before the war, for the first time since 2012. Meanwhile, the UN General Assembly adopted a resolution Wednesday to step up an independent panel to investigate possible war crimes in the nearly 6-year-old Syrian conflict. Now, Syria's ambassador to the UN denounced the measure.
The outcome they come up with in advance. How is it possible that those who finance this machinery are co-sponsors of terrorism, particularly Qatar and Saudi Arabia, and some European countries that export exclusive European terrorism to my country and to Iraq?
Well, the measure notes repeated calls by outgoing UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon and the UN Human Rights Office for the Security Council to refer the situation in Syria to the International Criminal Court. Russia and China have used their veto power to reject several such Security Council resolutions. Well, still in the Middle East, the fight against the Islamic State continues as Iraqi forces move deeper into Mosul on the eastern side of the city. Battles continue in the western desert between Mosul and Syria as forces close in on Tal Afar. That's a key city where Islamic State militants are expected to launch a bitter defense. But soldiers from the Shia militias say operations are slowing as winter sets in and increasing number of civilians are being held as human shields. VOA's Heather Maddock reports.
More than 2.5 years ago, IS militants captured this village, Bashmana, saying they were liberating the population from the government before destroying lives and livelihoods. About 2 months ago, Iraqi forces, including Shia militias, known here as Hashid Shabi, recaptured the village, and it is now slowly coming back to life. When Hashid Shabi arrived, locals say the tiny Sunni Muslim community was terrified sectarian violence would ensue.
IS militants made us afraid of Shabi. Even the media made us afraid. But after the liberation, we saw the opposite of what we have heard. We saw the truth.
And soldiers say Hashid Shabi has captured at least 80 villages from IS, but the most difficult battle lies ahead. As the winter weather sets in, both sides have slowed down, but Islamic State militants continue to launch attacks. Despite the setbacks, Hashid Shabi leaders say they are preparing to go into the city of Tal Afar, a strategic IS stronghold lying between Mosul and the Syrian border.
We must liberate Mosul and Tal Afar soon, but the goal for Iraqi forces is not to just liberate the place from IS militants. The goal is to free the people from IS militants and bring the area back to life again. Right now, there are many civilians in Tal Afar.
And civilians, he says, are the greatest challenge for Iraqi forces as more ordinary people are forced to retreat to protect militants who, soldiers say, would often rather die than surrender. Heather Murdoch, VOA News, Nineveh Province, Iraq.
Well, amid ongoing accusations that Russia attempted to influence and subvert the U.S. presidential election, Europe is bracing for a similar operation by Moscow ahead of a series of elections. Voters in France, Germany and the Netherlands go to the polls 2017, and analysts say Russia is already attempting to influence the outcomes. But Moscow denies the accusations. Henry Ridgewell has more from London.
German Chancellor Angela Merkel will stand for a fourth term in 2017 as the chief European architect of sanctions against Russia. Analysts say she is the European leader that Moscow would most like to see voted out of power. Merkel said this month that Germany must be ready to counter attempts to subvert the election.
We have to inform people and express our political convictions clearly. We also should not allow ourselves to be irritated. We just have to know that there's such a thing and learn to live with it.
This is Chancellor Merkel's Achilles heel. Close to 1 million migrants arrived in Germany in 2015. Analysts say Russia will likely try to whip up anti-immigrant feeling. In January this year, a fake news story about a Russian-German girl named Lisa, who had reportedly been raped by migrants, prompted protests in Germany and accusations of a cover-up from Moscow. The girl later admitted it was a lie. Russia will likely ramp up its efforts at disinformation ahead of the election, say analysts.
They can target it both in France and in Germany. But because Angela Merkel herself has been so closely identified with the policy of admitting refugees and asylum seekers to Germany, it is, I think, an area of vulnerability for her.
The far-right anti-immigrant Alternative for Germany party is rising in the polls. Monday's terror attack in Berlin could boost support.
or if we have an unraveling of the refugee situation again with the EU-Turkey pact unraveling on refugees, that could also increase the pressure on Germany.
Across Europe, far-right parties have sought close relationships with Moscow. Marine Le Pen, leader of France's National Front, secured a $10 million loan from a Russian bank to fight her election campaign. Bond says the populist far-right parties share one goal, the breakup of the European Union.
And from a Russian point of view, if you can divide Europe, if you can then pick off individual states and make them feel more vulnerable or make them feel that they have to accommodate themselves to Russia, then that's a huge win.
And with Donald Trump taking over the US presidency in January, European unity will be tested from all sides.
Trump himself, like Putin, seems to share this preference for dealing with countries in Europe bilaterally rather than multilaterally. And so I think he is not going to shed many tears if in fact the EU is weakened as a result of Russian activity in European elections in the coming months.
While Trump has said US NATO allies should pay more for defence, he has not suggested he wants to see the European Union weakened. European leaders hope that by sounding the alarm early, any attempts by Moscow to influence upcoming elections can be extinguished. But analysts warn Russia's propaganda drive is already well underway. Henry Ridgewell for VOA News, London.
Well, now to the election controversy in Gambia. Chief Justice Emmanuel Fagbemile says the Supreme Court will hear a legal challenge from President Yahya Jammeh's ruling party on January the 10th. That's just 9 days before he is supposed to relinquish power. President Jammeh seeks to overturn the results of an election he lost on December 1st. Gambia has no sitting Supreme Court, but the Nigerian-born Fagbemile says judges from Nigeria and Sierra Leone have been appointed to hear the case. Meanwhile, Jammeh says only Almighty Allah can deprive him of victory.
I will not be intimidated by any power in this world. I want to make sure that justice is done. I'm a man of peace, but I cannot also be a coward. My rights cannot be violated and intimidated to a point where I succumb to blackmail. I will never do that.
Well, opposition candidate Adama Barrow beat Jammeh in the election, and Jammeh initially conceded defeat. But days later, he reversed course and now contends there were voter irregularities. The UN Security Council, the African Union, and ECOWAS have all urged Jammeh to accept his defeat and step down. Well, we want to know what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we covered. Join the conversation on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. And check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Find me on Twitter at VOA Vince Makori. Coming up, new research suggests that pregnancy changes women's brain structure to prepare them for motherhood. Stay with us.
How do you see the world?
I see countries in turmoil.
I see our planet changing.
I see people at peace.
No matter how you see the world, you'll get an unbiased and uncensored view of it on Voice of America. On television, radio, online, and mobile. In more than 40 languages all day, every day. Millions of people tune us in.
How do I see the world? On Voice of America.
Well, it's time for our health report, and joining us now is Africa 54 health correspondent Lenore Mudu with a look at pregnancy and the brains of women. Hello, Lenore.
Hello, Vincent. Well, new research suggests a pregnancy changes women's brain structure in ways that potentially help prepare them for motherhood. Researchers tracked 25 first-time mothers in Europe over the course of 5 years, as well as a group of women who never conceived. They scanned the women's brains both before pregnancy and then again shortly after they gave birth, looking for potential changes in gray matter, the tissue that makes up the central nervous system. Changes occurred in areas of the brain involved in social interactions used for attributing thoughts and feelings to other people. The researchers say this would help mothers become more attached to their baby, among other things. The structural brain changes lasted for at least 2 years, and the researchers found no evidence of women's memory deteriorating. Now, scientists in the Netherlands say sustainable, cheap drug production using solar energy could be possible anywhere with exposure to sunlight. The researchers devised what they call a mini factory that captures sunlight to make a chemical reaction using luminescent solar concentrators. They examine how antenna molecules in leaves capture energy from sunlight and collect it in the reaction centers of the leaf, where solar energy is abundant enough to create photosynthesis. The team says lab tests were impressive and believes there is a vast potential for producing drugs this way without the usual requirement of toxic chemicals or external energy, often provided by fossil fuels. They say the device could be used to make drug compounds in places where solar energy has previously been deemed unthinkable. Dario Cambier is one of the researchers.
Then we had the first device and the test with the reaction, and it turned out that we could accelerate the reaction of order of magnitude. So the reaction came like 2, 3, 4 times faster in solar simulated condition and even in solar light. So that was really surprising for us because, yeah, we knew that the idea would have worked, but we were not expecting such good results in the beginning.
The researchers say the technology could become widespread within 10 years. The findings are published in German weekly peer-reviewed scientific journal Angewandte Chemie. Now, the prices of medicine in Nigeria are several times higher than in many other countries around the world, according to data from the WHO and the Nigerian government. A group of young computer coders and technologists discovered that medicine prices in Nigeria can be 9 times higher than the global average. Chika Odua reports from Abuja.
In Nigeria, pharmacies are feeling the pinch of the country's economic recession. The cost of medicine at this store has gone up 40% in the past 6 months. Fumi Bola Omotayo says she is worried about her customers.
You can see affordability of drugs is actually life. Your health will not know if you can afford the drugs or not.
She says fewer than 5% of her customers have health insurance to help subsidize the cost. The drugs sold at this store are mostly imported. Public health analysts say less than 30% of medicine available in Nigeria is manufactured locally. Nigeria is facing high inflation and import tariffs have increased.
I can say it's expensive because of the recession we are in Nigeria.
We realize that the price is actually higher than what we normally, what we used to buy.
But even before the economy slumped this year, medicine prices were relatively high in Nigeria. Studies in 2004 and 2010 by the World Health Organization and the Nigerian government revealed the cost of medicinal drugs in Nigeria is several times higher than the global average. The 2004 study found distributor or retailer markups could be 900% of the manufacturer's price. Today, pharmacists and public health analysts know the pharmaceutical system in Nigeria enables huge profit margins.
Everyone's trying to think of their own self-interest, how they can maximize profit, because there isn't a strong regulation from the government. Because you could go sometimes 400-500 times markups.
The high prices inspired a team of technical experts and computer coders to develop an app to help users learn more about the cost of medicine.
So the tool asks people how much they're paying for medicine, compares it with the World Health Organization data showing what an average person is paying everywhere else in the world. And we display what percentage higher Nigerians are paying.
But pharmacist Onyekachi Mbadiwe is concerned that the app may not provide enough information about what goes into pricing.
I can imagine someone tweeting and saying, oh, I bought paracetamol at 500 times the markup at X pharmacy. They're fraudulent, they're doing all kinds of things, and this will go on social media, and we know how powerful social media can be. So I was just thinking there needs to be something to just support the information that is being given to the client.
For now, Temi Adeoye and his team of coders hope their application will bring the cost issue to the attention of policymakers. Chika Odua for VOA News, Abuja.
Interesting what can be done with technologies these days. Well, that's our health report for today. To stay in touch, find me on Twitter at Lenore Mudu. Back to you, Vincent.
Well, thanks a lot, Lenore, and that's really useful information. Just remember to join Lenore Mudu for our health reports every Tuesday and Thursday right here on Africa 54. It's time now for a short break. Still to come on Africa 54, a new coffee trend is brewing in Nigeria. We'll be right back.
I'm Milar Sega. I'm the host of VOA's The Correspondents, a roundup of the world's top stories with analysis from our dedicated reporters. It's really a conversation the same way that you would bring a friend to your home and ask them what's going on. And our correspondents will do that and answer those questions through their own eyes.
That appears a false choice in more ways than one.
We can't actually put you there, but we can come pretty close. In 30 minutes, we'll show you the world.
Well, most of the coffee sold in Nigeria is instant and imported. But a local beverage company is working to market its new blends of freshly roasted and ground coffee to a growing middle class that likes to drink Java. VOA's Paul Ndiho tells us how Kaldi Africa is changing Nigeria's coffee culture.
Kaldi African promotes a locally roasted and processed coffee made from brands of coffee sourced in Nigeria, Uganda and Kenya. The beverage processing company operates in Nigeria's commercial capital, Lagos. The company, which launched nearly a year ago, started roasting coffee beans sourced from other African countries as part of a larger plan to offer Nigerian coffee lovers a more premium product. The goal is to target a growing middle class that is ready to spend a while meeting in coffee shops opening up around the city. Kaldi's managing director Nasra Ali says that most supermarkets in the country sell imported instant coffee varieties, but there is demand for freshly ground and brewed quality coffee.
What we're having right now is, as a result of the globalization and the coffee drinking culture globally, we know that coffee is the second most drunk beverage after water and is the second highest traded commodity after oil. Then it's inevitable that it will catch up in Nigeria. So what we are basically doing is we are using the best of the African product and preparing ourselves for the launch of the coffee culture in Nigeria and the greater West Africa.
After a roasting process, coffee beans go into a destoning machine to make sure that the last bits of impurities are removed before being grounded and packed in bags for sale. 1 kilogram of Kaldi coffee sells for about $8. The company also works very closely with farmers to buy their produce and to help them promote their coffee. Nearly 10% of the world's coffee comes from the African continent. Alfred Mai is the head of operations at Kaldi African Coffee.
The kind of business model that we picked was very well thought through, because it was not just about coffee roasting. It's about, when we roast, what are we going to do with the coffee? Do we have the capacity to be able to give the education to people on the benefits of drinking fresh roasted coffee? And how are they going to have the consistency of the fresh roasted coffee? Yeah, so I think I cannot regret. It's really working.
Apart from Ethiopia, which consumes more than half of the coffee it produces, few sub-Saharan African countries have a taste for the drink. During weekends, Kaldi African Coffee treats guests to various coffee drinks made by the baristas to give people a chance to sample and learn more about the benefits of drinking coffee.
Aside from the quality of the product, the passion, the zeal and everything is quite interesting. And then for me as a person, the fact that we have such a thing here in Nigeria is actually great.
New coffee startups in Nigeria compete with big brands like Nestle, which is responsible for nearly 80% of the country's coffee sales. Mostly instant coffee sold off mobile carts and on the streets. Paul Ndiho, VOA News, Washington.
Well, a vintage plane rally recently concluded along South Africa's coast, and VOA's Caroline Turner tells us all about it.
Nearly a dozen vintage biplanes completed a month-long journey down the length of the African continent and landed in Stellenbosch, near Cape Town, recently. Many of the biplanes were built in the 1920s. The vintage air rally survived detention in Ethiopia, an emergency landing in Kenya, and 2 searches for a British retiree who flew off radar during their 12,000-kilometer adventure. The route took the pilots along some of the most scenic and evocative points in Africa. Pilots were euphoric over the scenic views.
We had the chance to surround the Cape and go all the way back up. That was great. It was a fantastic flight. It was one of the best flights we've done so far.
The planes did not always have a smooth flight.
If you can get one of these to fly 8,000 nautical miles and still be going well at the end, I think that's the achievement.
Last month, pilots were detained in Ethiopia because authorities were not informed in time of their arrival. The rally was suspended while diplomats scrambled to secure the release of the pilots and crew. The vintage aircraft are almost 100 years old.
This is a 1928 Travel Air, so it's 88 some years old. They have birthday coming up in December.
Pilots briefed their greeters on the highlights of their trip.
For me, I guess the highlight, too, besides Victoria Falls, was in Gora Gora, up at the top of the crater, landing there. So it was the oldest airplane to ever have landed at the top of the elevation there, and the oldest to take off, too. Yeah, so I have an African record, I guess.
Air Rally pilots calculated the travel logistics.
126 hours to fly here from England. Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
Air pilots reflected on the highlights of touring Africa through the air.
We landed at the pyramids, just by the pyramids, and that has not been done for 80 years. So that's one of the highlights of the trip.
The rally turned out to be one of the photo op tours of a lifetime. Carolyn Turner, VOA News, Washington.
Well, and that's our show for today. Now be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. For more news, tune in to VOA's evening radio show, Africa News Tonight at 1800 UTC, and in the mornings to Daybreak Africa between 0300 and 0600 UTC, Monday through Friday. Thanks a lot for watching from all of us here in Washington. Have a good night.
Welcome to the Voice of America's Newswords.
Here is U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry talking about U.S. and Chinese relations.
Listen for this word.
Emergence.
We welcome the emergence of a peaceful, stable, prosperous China that contributes to the stability and the development of the region and that chooses to play a responsible role in world affairs.
Emergence means the act of something appearing. It is coming out of hiding or just beginning.
Emergence also can describe nature, like the emergence of flowers, which come every spring.
Now, when you hear the word emergence, you will know what this newsword means.